Well, hey, welcome back or welcome to another episode of the Miss Michaela Mae Show. I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae, here with my corgis, Tank and Willie. So if you hear some paw prints in the background, it's a corgi. And today we're going to talk about when you become the person you never thought you would become. And I'm going to take this from two different angles because a lot of times when we think about the person we never thought we would become, or when we're being the person we never thought that we would become, we think about it in a negative connotation. Oh, I never said I would be this way with money, and now I am. I said I would never be this way with some kind of addiction, whether it be alcohol, nicotine, um, even the gym. Like I said, I'd never become this person, and now I am. And from my experience, I've also become a person that most people would perceive it as positively good, including myself. I would perceive me becoming this kind of person a positively a good thing. And it's still that identity shift, becoming a person I never thought I would become has still been hard, whether it be perceived quote unquote negative or positively. So I'm going to take this topic from both of those angles and we're going to sort it out because this is very much the position I have been in the last couple of years of becoming someone I never thought I would become. So first I'm going to take it from the angle of the perceived negatively. I'm stuck in an addiction loop, or I'm stuck being angry, I'm stuck being hateful, like whatever that is. I said I'd never be this way with money, and now I am. And so for me, the time that really came forward when I was prepping for this episode prior to pressing record was when I became a very angry and hateful person. I will do a bigger episode giving you my backstory. I actually think I'm going to end up publishing my audiobook on this podcast. I haven't fully decided yet, so you'll get the full story. But essentially, after I went through the childhood sexual abuse, I became a very hateful and angry person. Like, I just remember it's almost, you're sitting hunched over and almost shaking with anger because you can't control it. Some people, I kind of think about when someone say like, I don't know what that's like. I'm like, well, you're either really good at numbing or you haven't had something happen that has made emotions like feel uncontrollable. And that was the point that I was at, was I was just, one little thing would happen and I would just burst because I couldn't hold it all together because there were so many emotions wrapped up into that situation. And I couldn't even begin to process them until I got out of the situation. And once I got out of the situation, they were just like trying to explode out of me, quite literally. But that was someone I never thought that I would become. And I could tell even for my parents at the time, like more specifically my mom, I tended to be the more emotionally quote unquote stable child. Again, I would argue it was more emotionally numb child. I we'll pull that we'll pull on that thread a little bit more a different day. And so now when I am becoming this emotional, like uncontrollably emotional, I could tell like even my mom didn't know what to do with me. And so it was hard on like not just me but like change. There's a quote by I can never remember his name. It's like Anatoly something. This is not one of my quote, but change, even the most longed for, has its melancholy, because to become someone, we become something or someone new, we have to lose a different part of ourselves. So that was just the first time I'd experienced like I'm becoming this new person, but I've had to lose this other part of myself. So on top of the anger and the sadness and the confusion, now there's also this grief, not only of, because the way that I was groomed, it was as if this person was my best friend. So it's weird because you've got that grief going on. And all of a sudden, I find myself in the middle of the storm of someone I never thought I would become. And as I've had to heal that, there are a few things we can start to look at, few different lenses we can start to look at this situation through, because there's always a steps to get to where we want to go. And a lot of times what happens, especially in like the spiritual development, the personal development, the healing space, what happens is I realize I have a problem. I want to be healed tomorrow. Step one, step two, bada bing, bada boom. And yes, that sounds great. However, there are multiple steps in between. And it's when we go from step 1 to step 10 that we are more likely to rebound back to step 1. And so we want to go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, etc. so that the change is long lasting. So when it comes to we find ourselves becoming being the person we don't want to be, the first thing we have to do is accept and acknowledge I have become someone I didn't want to become. And so for me, even at so I'm 12, 13 at this point, even for me, the first thing was just, I remember this so clearly. I just remember saying, like, I just don't want to hate the bastard, because for me, it felt like this hatred was the most in the front seat, and it was the most uncontrollable for me. So there was this acknowledgement of I'm somewhere that I don't want to be. And the goal is to just, and the goal would be step 10 of like, I just don't want to hate the bastard anymore. Cause at that point, I'd grind a couple of my teeth so hard that I had actually, or I'd started grinding my teeth that I had chipped a tooth. And so that was like kind of the, even at 13, that was kind of the breaking moment for me of I like my teeth, I want to keep my teeth, and I don't want to be chipping teeth around here, and I am. So there was this acknowledgement, and then we go to the acceptance. Okay, this is where I am, that happened, and now I'm super angry and feel a bunch of hatred towards this person. And once we start to work, I'm not going to go through a full depth of like working through emotions today. That will be, I'll cross post it, but that will be more on my Western Hippie show. But once we get to the point where we can start working through these emotions, whether we're writing letters, whether you're working with someone like me one-on-one to help guide you through these emotions, this guiding process now becomes steps 2 through 10 or 2 through 8, depending on where a person's at. So now we can start working through these emotions. And once we start working through these emotions, the last step becomes seeing the good and bad in the situation. And that's the one thing that I just want to offer, because the thing about healing and working through traumas and through different emotions and these identity shifts, it's very similar. I have a background in riding horses and working with horses. It's very similar to horse training, meaning you have a process that you go through. However, every horse is different. So I had this one horse that she just pushed me to my limit, because everything I thought I knew about horse training was proven wrong with this horse. So normally I would do step 1, 2, 3. Well, now with this horse, I'm having to do step 4 first, and I'm having to do step 5 third. And it's all these different changes, because if we are so beating ourselves up and being so hard on ourselves, what we would typically use as step 10 can sometimes become a very powerful step 1 to start loosening us up enough that we can actually work through these emotions. So one of the things that we can start to do is seeing, so we're perceiving it as bad. Even at that age, I was perceiving it as bad. I've become a very angry and hateful person. Okay, well, now where can I see the good in it? Because we live in a world that has both good and bad in everything. And I know that can sound extreme or a little unbelievable. And the thing that I told myself, because I felt that same way too, when I first heard that, I'm like, yeah, mm-mm. However, if there are consequences to drinking too much water, meaning someone can internally drown from drinking too much water, it has happened. I'll let you look it up. If there is a consequence to drinking water, there is a consequence to everything. So we can also flip that. If there's a benefit to some of the harshest things in the world, so I'm going to use myself for example, if I can find a benefit to being sexually assaulted, I can find a benefit in everything, because there were some benefits. So would I have been able to, for me personally, would I have been able to do this at that specific point? No, I would have had to have start just working through the emotions and being able to express them and get them out. However, now if I'm having to go work on a past wound, this can be really helpful. Very similar to horse training. Yes, we have a process, but the only guarantee is in the process is that the process might change depending on the patient. And so now we're pulling this tool in and saying like, okay, how can I now see the good in this so I can loosen up enough that I can start working through these emotions? Okay, well, it gave me a depth that I don't know that anything else could have given me. The amount of, because of that depth, like the amount of people I can talk to now has increased significantly. The amount of people that feel safe talking to me about some of the hardest things they have gone through, I can point back to that situation because I went to the depth of my soul, because I looked my own devil in the face. People trust me to help them go to the depth of their soul and look their own devil in the face. Okay, now I'm starting to see this good in it and can see like, oh, this was all a part of the plan. I needed to become someone I never thought I would become, because now I call it the absolute value of circumstances. So if you remember in math, absolute value is 10. Positive 10 away from 0 is 10, and negative 10 away from 0 is also 10. So the further we go into the negatives, the more we can go into the positives. So because I went at that point, I had probably only been to like a -8. So I could only go into a +8. Well, now that I have this experience under my belt, now I've gone to a -25. Now I can go to a +25. And I don't know about you, but I love depth. I love having deep conversations. I love having meaningful conversations. And because of this experience, my life is so much richer, and I have more depth and I have more width both ways in my life. And so now I can start to relieve and see the good in how even something that is perceived as negative was still beneficial for me and my path. So that is all I'm going to talk about on the part one. If you would like me to talk about something else in regards to part one, in regards to a tool that can help you through something when you become someone you never thought you would be and you're perceiving it as a negative thing, please either email me at Michaela at michaelamae.com, or leave a review telling me what you would like me to talk about more on that first subject, because now I'm going to go to the part two, which is where we become someone we never thought we would be. And it's perceived as not only a good thing, but maybe even a cool thing, or maybe even like something someone would be jealous of, but yet it was still someone we never thought we would become. And there's still an identity shift. There's still that grief because it's a change. And there's still some hard things about accepting ourselves and coming out of any closets in our life. I'm actually going to start with that. This wasn't in the notes, and I love when things come in like this, when it's like such an impromptu, but it's one of my favorite stories. There's a book by a guy named Dave Rubin called Don't Burn This Book. And one of the things that Dave talks about in Don't Burn This Book is coming out of the closet, regardless of what closet you're in. So Dave specifically in the book came out of two different closets. He came out of a sexuality closet, which was coming out as a gay man. And then he also came out of the political closet. And he talks about, I highly recommend you go read the book. I haven't read a book that fast in a long time, and I just flew through that book. And so he talks about the importance of basically what the quote unquote closet is. It is the secrets and these parts of ourselves that we hide from the world because we're afraid that if we show them, we won't be accepted. And if we won't be accepted, we won't be loved. And that's where we have to start, like, okay, if I want other people to accept me, I first have to accept myself. And that's the part that I have had a really hard time with, is accepting this part of myself, because it's so weird and so just never where I expected my life to go. And it's something like, for me, I've always been a very physical person. Like, I played sports growing up. Like I've mentioned in this episode, I rode horses. I was a math nerd in school. Like, I was always what I would call a very physical person, meaning I believed in God, but like I wasn't spiritual. I wasn't what I would say woo woo. I kind of I believed in like angels. I don't, but I'd have to go back and really think about it. And I don't want to think about it for this episode at the moment, but I think I believed like some people could be psychic, but I didn't really, like, I thought it was weird. And I thought the majority of them were phonies and just kind of quacks, to be honest with you. And so as I began my own healing journey, is how I describe it now, is think of trauma as a callus, and the process of healing is shaving off the callus between you and God, or you and source, or you and a higher power, whatever you want to call it. So the interesting thing is, when we start to heal, when we start to remove those calluses, you don't have to develop what I'm going to call for this episode like a sixth sense. It's just already there. And so I'm going into this healing work primarily because I was having issues, like, and I still am working through this, but like vulnerability issues and letting myself be seen. And then specifically wanting to get to a point where I could have a long-term partner. And so that was the main reason I dove into this healing work. Was there was some business goals I had, some relationship goals I had, and I could tell this trauma that I was carrying around was getting in the way of those things. So I go headfirst into things as I do, not expecting the end result to be the end result. So then when I get to the end result, like the visual I'm kind of getting, and I think I've used this visual, this reference a couple times in this show, but it's the like when Timon, if you've ever seen Lion King 1.5, it's like when they're digging a tunnel, like there's a song that's like dig, 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 dig a tunnel, and you come up out of the tunnel and you don't even realize where you are because you've just been so focusing on digging and getting to where you want to go that maybe you didn't realize you thought you were going north, but since you were underground digging this tunnel, you actually ended up going northeast or east or northwest or just fully west, which is where I found myself when I was doing this healing work. When I got up and started realizing that this sixth sense, if you will, this callus between God and I had been removed, and now I had this clear communication to God. It freaked me the hell out. Like when people, I just see people online, and especially because was the whole point of the closet conversation, is there are people that would love to have the ability to tap into the unseen the way that I have practiced and developed and done the trauma work to do so. There are people that are asking online every day, like, how do I develop this? How do I develop that? And I'm sitting over there reading their messages, having this skill that they're trying to develop. Like, I didn't ask for this. This was just something that came, and it freaks me out. So the fact that you feel so comfortable with it and you're just over here trying to, this is something you're actively seeking. Again, I felt like with the tunnel thing, like I wasn't actively seeking it. I was actively seeking something else. And this just happened to be a side effect of what I was seeking. And so part of this episode, and part of even for me with the step one about acceptance and acknowledgement, is even coming out of the quote unquote spiritual closet here of like, this is a thing that I can do. And this is a thing that I have been uncomfortable with. And yet it is a thing that people are out there seeking, that people are out there wanting, even maybe having a hard time developing. And for me, it was like, oh, I just did the trauma work and it was there. And I actually think that is the answer. It's like, just do the trauma work, learn some skills. There are some skills to make your intuition stronger. Like intuition, the sixth sense, if you will, is like a muscle, and you do want to train it. I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but it is also not as complicated as people make it out to be. And this has been something that's been very hard for me to accept about myself. And again, of course, there are some people that would perceive this as weird or out of the box or like, oh my gosh. But there is also a lot of people that would kill to have the skills that I have, that would love to have the skills that I have. And so how, for me, this is what's been hard. Like when there's been something that's been perceived as bad, the interesting thing is it's almost been easier for me to accept it about myself, where this thing, and I think because it requires me to be more seen and to have even deeper acceptance, because the things that we don't like about ourselves, we can accept and move on and shift out of them so that we no longer have them. So for me, it's easier actually to not have shame around some things that I've experienced. And because I've moved on from them, where this is a thing that I want to hold on to and develop. And in order for me to do what I want to do, allow myself to be seen for this as this person. And I was even thinking about it today. This is kind of turning into a confessional. Isn't it fun for you and me both? And I was thinking about it today as I was driving. There's a part of me that perceives that having this gift and talking about this gift will make me seem quacky or a phony, and it will lower my credibility. And the thing that I have to go back to is everything in my life has been that way at one point. Like when I was getting into natural skincare, you couldn't go to a Safeway or a Ralph's or an Albertsons, just like your local grocery store, and get a deodorant without chemicals in it. You had to go to a Whole Food, you had to seek out like a Whole Foods or a Natural Grocers. Like there was only a very small percentage of stores carrying these things. So I ended up making those things. I was way like ahead of the curve on that. And so now my job is to start accepting this about myself, to see what I need to allow myself to be seen for having this part of me. And the thing that has helped me the most with this is seeing how many more people I can help because of this and how more effective I am because of this. And then the last part that I am needing to add that I'm just learning with you in real time is seeing how much more me I've been allowed to become because of this gift, and how much better I feel being whole as a person because of this gift. But I really wanted to touch on this subject today because, one, I don't think it's talked about enough, that when you go on a healing journey or when you go on a personal development journey, you might become someone you thought you'd never become, and it's perceived as a good thing, and yet it's still a hard thing. So how do we hold that space and acknowledge the things that are good but are still hard? And it is the like learning how to hold both and be able to give ourselves what we need and not let those external voices affect us. And the example that's really coming through is like when we see childhood stars, they get a lot of criticism from people when they have problems because, like, oh, yeah, it must really be a bad thing to have $25 million and be having a mental breakdown. Like, it's better to have that than, and we don't give celebrities the acknowledgement as a general rule for how hard their job is. Like, yes, are they paid for it? Yes, but do they also pay for it in other ways? Yes. And so that's the dance that I believe just not just you and me here today, but as a culture, we are learning to dance is how do we hold both? And how do we give ourselves what we need, regardless of what all these external voices are saying? Because when we say, like, again, it can sound, I can see where someone would perceive how it's snobby of me to say, like, oh, you did your trauma work and all the sixth senses that I've been working for however many years, like you just got them. Someone can perceive that as snobby, but it's like, what do I need? Oh, I need this acknowledgement. I need this acceptance. And I don't really care what you say because you're on your path and I'm on my path, and it's all relative. And we all have our different relativity of hard. So I think I've left an episode with this question before, but this is the question that I am going to leave you with today. Pick your favorite thing like that I talked about that is standing out to you that you want to hold on to and extrapolate on more. And then the second thing, the question that I will leave you with today is, what do you need and how can you give that to yourself today? Because ultimately, whether we have turned into someone that we never thought we would become and it's perceived as a bad thing, like the hatred, the anger, any addiction, or where what I'm navigating through now, what, like, you've turned into something that's perceived as a good thing and yet you're still having a hard time making that identity shift, ask yourself, what is one thing I need and how can I give that to myself today or even this week? So do you just need to call a friend? Do you need to go get a massage? Do you need to just sit down in the dark, or maybe, like, I don't know why I'm seeing this, but like getting in the shower and just lighting a candle and being in complete silence, like don't turn the music on, like just find one thing that you need today and find a way to give that and provide that for yourself either today or this week. That is a wrap on episode 9 of the Miss Michaela Mae Show. I am so thankful that you're here. If you found value out of this episode, please rate and subscribe. And if you really want to do me a favor, I would be absolutely honored if you would leave a review. That helps other people find the show. It also helps me help you and know what you want and what you want to see more of, what you found valuable, what you would like me personally to extrapolate on. And yes, it's just a little cherry on top, if you will. And I've always loved a good cherry on top. So thank you so much for being here. Again, I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae, here with my corgis, Tank and Willie. Thank you for being here, and we will talk to you next time.